I don't know. I'm looking to see how much joy is in the room. He's full of joy. How many of you seen those campfire songs? Rejoice in the Lord always. And again I say, rejoice, rejoice. And again I say, all right, we got to work on it, Janie. I'm not sure the joy is there yet, right? How about the kids? I always do this song. I'm actually very tired of it. Fruit of the Spirit's not a coconut. Fruit of the Spirit's not a coconut. So if you want to be a coconut, you might as well hear it. You can't be a fruit of the Spirit because the fruit is... Hey, some of you got it. It's the 9 fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. How about this one? I've got the joy, 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 joy. Where? Where? I've got the joy, 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 joy. Down in my heart to stay, and I'm so happy. Oh, you faded on me again, didn't you? Like, I only have so much joy. I can't even finish a song. How about this one? You know the rest of it? I've got the wonderful love of my blessed Redeemer way down in the depths of my heart. Where? Down in the depths of my heart. Where? Down in the depths. I've got the wonderful... Okay, wait, see this old campfire songs. Well, let me tell you what is true. It's not actually down in your heart. If we do a quick review of what we've been talking about the last few weeks. Mike, what's that? Is the next one my review page? We've been talking about the different emotions. One, we had an overview of emotions itself. And essentially, it's out of your mind. Where your thoughts lie is what triggers that heart palpitation, the emotions that come with it. So we're still growing emotionally. That's the one thing we get out of Philippians 1:6, that God is not finished with us yet. He's still working on us. So no matter where you are in your spiritual life, don't assume you've arrived to that perfection. You're still going to let things get the best of you, anger, frustration. But I did ask you a few weeks ago how to turn anger into action. And one of the most powerful ways you can do that in Philippians 2:1-4 is just being helpful towards others. When you get upset and angry about something, it should be the hallway that when you journey through that anger gets you to a place that takes action. If you ruminate on your emotions, that's why we're calling this get out of your own head. The rumination actually becomes sort of the spiraling effect that it's okay to have self-reflection, but you can't just take a scenario and run it over and over and over in your head. And that anger you feel becomes something of a dopamine hit that you just find yourself wanting that. So you listen to the talking heads who are always angry about politics. You can't solve any of those problems. I'm going to get a little bit on a soapbox for a minute. How many of you seen somebody reshare a tweet about ICE in Minnesota? And we're so engaged. And yet the question I would ask anybody who makes that post, what can you do about it? What you need to do is decide what that anger might make turned into action with your present reality, your circumstances. And I'm not saying getting into politics is bad. We need to know what on the national stage is going on. But if you really ask yourself, what does that reposting come from? It's usually from doom scrolling, isn't it? You just can't help yourself listening over and over to other people say, and you have a shared anger towards it. Are we helping? Are we getting to a place that we are helpful? Same thing is true about sadness. You can get into a place where you just get depressed, and you get into a place where you feel lost. And we don't like sadness. We try to hurry up and get out of it. But really, it has a purpose and it recalibrates our lives. And we have to sort of process grief or struggle. When we coach and our kids lose a game. I've always said when you win, you're a winner. When you lose, and the kids always goes, losers. No, you're learners. Losing is learning. When you really feel defeated, you have this moment to reflect on what happened and what did you learn from it. And then, of course, last week, talking about the face your fears. The fear of the Lord is our strength. And then, of course, facing your fears that are unrealized or exaggerated, that's also a challenge for us. How do we lower our expectations about the things that make us feel fearful? And when we really talk about them, we realize they're not all that big in our life. We've given them more power than they really hold. So how do we face them and bring them down to a right size in our life that maybe it's in the moment, and then it's gone, and we can move on. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit this morning. Let's go with the first of joy. We have to define it, so let's define the spirit of joy. And it is a feeling that's more than happy. It's a positive state of mind. Notice how we're changing that. It's not my heart. It's a positive state of mind characterized by feelings of pleasure, contentment, and well-being after arising from, and here's another big word, meaningful engagement, connection, or fulfillment other than momentary reward alone. I'll give you the things that are the trickle-down effect we have of this. Most of us want pleasurable moments, but this defining pleasure is a sensory overload, if you will. Have that moment. It's great pleasure. Triple chocolate cake. I mean, it's not just chocolate cake. It's got to be like layers in there, and when you take into it, how many of you like cake more than icing? Yes. If the Catholics are right, purgatory is for you, because that does not make any sense at all. Like, that is like, you're not really there. Like, what is cake? But you add icing on the cake, and you put icing in the middle of the cake, and then you put it on the bottom of the cake, and it's like, that is heaven. I think that's heaven. And you take that, and it's that burst of pleasure, right? And it doesn't matter if cake is your thing or it's the M&Ms, but you have a burst in that moment. You're like, oh, this is wonderful. Well, what is that compared to happiness? Well, happiness now a little bit more is a broader mood on life. These are happy moments. But then what is joy? See, joy is even deeper yet. It's an emotionally vivid, relational, meaningful mindset. Let me give you an example of how this would work. It brings me great joy to go on vacation with my family. And the beach is my wife's. I'm using my wife as an example. That is her happy place. And it brings her great pleasure to get her toes in the sand with the waves crashing over them. Do you see how that worked? That moment of pleasure that can be fleeting, you got to get there and you got to put your feet down there. And then that happy experience of this opportunity to go to the beach. But then what is really joyful is you perceive life in all of those measures. That whole experience brings you great joy. Another way to say it is joy isn't more dopamine. It reflects a way of thinking. Thus, not joy in my heart, joy in my head. So let's compare that in contrast to anhedonia. Anhedonia is a diminished or absent ability to experience pleasure. You can't experience with great interest. You don't feel like something is emotionally rewarding, either from the activities or just your normal experiences in life. They don't find them enjoyable. This is in contrast to joy. For an anhedonia person, somebody who struggles to find joy, I'll tell you, you're probably in this room, and I no sooner wrote this sermon and I realized I'm in this room. How many times a day or a week have you said something like this? Why is that person so happy? You've said it. You actually have said something like this. Joy is for the weak-minded. I live in reality. I remember a Garfield comic strip where Garfield and Odie are both sitting on a limb in a tree. And Garfield, the thought bubble says, he's just dumb enough he doesn't know he shouldn't be here. Like, he shouldn't be in the tree, shouldn't climb the tree, but because he's always with Garfield in the tree, and Odie is just too dumb to know he shouldn't climb trees, climbed the tree anyway. And big dumb Odie is always happy and full of joy, and Garfield, the forever cynic, making fun of him. I no sooner was writing into this sermon, and I thought, oh, I feel like I'm a very joyful person. And then Remy spent the night. And Remy spent the night on Friday night because she had a game on Saturday that Tara said we're supposed to take her to the game because they have other games. They have to go other places. I said, it's totally fine. I don't really care. I'm going to bed. Went to bed. I got up in the morning as I normally do on my Saturdays. I like my morning quiet devotion. And I'm sitting in a chair. And then it happens. It's coming from the other room. And you know, it's like a train. It's just getting closer. And you're like, oh, boy. And as soon as she comes into the room, she sees the dog peacefully laying by me. We're just peaceful creatures right now. And she comes jumping, bing, bing, blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden the dog's up, and we're all kind of crazy. And then she's got to talk to me about the basketball game, and then she's got to talk about the day, and what's going to happen at the day. And eventually, most of you know this is a problem because you get to this space, and she says, at some point, I stop listening, and she goes, well, oh boy, I was supposed to be listening, and I stopped listening. She caught me off guard, and I remember looking at her going, I don't like that you're this happy. Go away. But that spirit of joy that we see in our children should not escape us. We should not grow out of it. We should not look upon it as if it is for the dumb, the absent-minded. Scripture tells us God intended with his Spirit to give us joy. And we really have lost that, not because we got older or we got smarter, but I'm going to give you a couple easy ones. We've lost it mostly from a sedentary lifestyle. And this artificially induced dopamine hits that is doom scrolling, or we get caught on our phones. What I'm essentially saying is that we're watching life, we're not living it. And when you find yourself watching life and not living it, it creates FOMO, fear of missing out, or here's the worst one, it's idolizing other people's lives. You see their lives, why can't you have that life? And because you're watching it and not living it, you decide to stay home instead of go out to those events. You're like, I want to go to those events. My wife just texted me. She's up visiting family to watch her niece's senior dance recital. We made our jokes the last couple of days. Who would want to go to a dance recital where they dance for 3 minutes and it's 4 hours? And they're forever. She was not exactly thrilled about it, but I have to admit, she texted and said she's so glad she came. And that's that flip, right? At first, you're like, I'm not sure I want to get out of the house. I don't know if I want to leave the house. And yet you have to force yourself to stop watching life and living it. We know that balance. You need a time to step back. But our culture today, when we feel like we've become more cynical, is because we've probably separated ourselves more from the people we're cynical about. So I'm just going to give you a simple life lesson for a few minutes today. I want you to choose joy. And here's the number one thing we're going to talk about. The joy in a person's life is the evidence of Jesus. Let me say that again. The joy in your life is the evidence, it's a byproduct of your relationship with Jesus. Okay? And here's why this is really important. You can't decide you're going to be joyful and then encounter Jesus. And that is really difficult because it's usually in your moodiest, darkest moments that you need to accept a conversation and the presence of Jesus so that it can bring back a life of joy. That's what Paul says in Philippians 4:4. Rejoice in the Lord always. And if you didn't hear me the first time, Paul says, and again I say, rejoice. Be in the joy of the Lord always. He says it throughout Philippians. It's known as the book of joy. Christ proclaimed, and in this that Christ proclaimed he's Lord, I rejoice. Philippians 2, make my joy complete. Have the same love, being one in spirit, one in mindness, that helping one another. Paul is echoing John 15, where Jesus himself said to the disciples, make my joy complete in you. Paul, in the early part of Philippians 4, says, you, the Philippians, you as God's people, you're my joy and crown. So it is the byproduct, not one of the ingredients that gets us to the end and the outcome. I'll give you an example. You make a birthday cake. Why? So you can enjoy celebrating somebody's birthday and sharing the cake. That's the byproduct. What you did to prepare for that moment with that person becomes the joyful moment because you did things to get to that end. So now I'm going to counter that. If you struggle with joy, you can't also feel like you're right with Jesus. Now hear me this morning. You can't say I'm right with Jesus, but I'm really cynical about the world. Those two cannot be disconnected. The joy of the Lord is my strength. In fact, I would challenge you, if you feel you are in a disposition that is angry or discontent or frustrated, physiologically, how far is Jesus from you? How distant is God from you? Emotionally, relationally. And all of a sudden, you just have that quiet time and you pull him back in. And the closer you get to Jesus, the more peaceful, the more joyful your life becomes again. The late Adrian Rogers preached a sermon and he gave these 3 traits. So we're just ending on this, but if you want to take notes of a few of these that you can apply this week. This is the outcome, right? So if you are a person of joy, first of all, you have continuous joy. Despite your circumstances, you will always be able to find joy. You're not in and out of it. And here's why. If you have Jesus, you have joy, right? Well, if you have salvation, you're not in and out of salvation. You don't decide today I'm saved, tomorrow I'm not saved. Today's a good day, I'm saved. Tomorrow's a bad day, I'm saved. You're always saved. And if you live in that salvation, then you live with the knowledge that you always have the life of Jesus, and with that comes joy. So it should be continuous, even if it's not always that fun. Anybody ever drive to Florida? It's a 20-hour drive. It's just long and miserable. Back in my day, we drive to Florida, and Dad would want to take us, and my older brother just decided he wasn't going with us as often when he got older, but my sister and I would love to go on the trips. It'd be 20 hours. We knew the destination was where we wanted to be. We wanted to be in Florida. But 20 hours for kids without iPads. So what do? Here's the thing. They were some of the most memorable trips that I've ever been on. We played all the stupid games. We played cars and trucks. I don't know about you, cars and trucks. We just counted how many. I got 15 trucks. She got 30 cars. And if Dad didn't like it because I was winning all the time, there was more trucks, then all of a sudden he's like, okay, you got to get 20 trucks and she's got to get 30 cars. And I kid you not, Dad seemed to get it right that we would have to time the last truck and the car passing the truck, and it would have to pass our car. And we were just on pins and needles because we didn't wear seatbelts. We were just smashed up against the window. We're like, it's going to be me. We played cars and trucks forever. We played Find the Letter, and you could never find Z. We begged Dad to just skip it. Can we please find another letter? We found joy in the journey. There's an old Michael Card song, Joy in the Journey, Joy in the Journey. Yes, we want to be there, but we know that the togetherness is part of it. So even though your circumstances may not be what you want them to be, how do you still find joy in the journey? It's continuous. Even though we're waiting for God to right the world, we're still on our way with him. He's present with us now. The second one is it's conspicuous joy. Despite where you are, make it evident. Not inconspicuous. A lot of Christians, we live inconspicuous lives. People wouldn't even know that we are Christians if it was brought up at our place of work. If you're a conspicuous Christian, you don't want to be conspicuous because you're the Pharisee, because you're the know-it-all. What is it you hope people know about you as a Christian? It's the joy. That you enjoy this life. I have to say that in high school, I always loved when I was challenged as a high school student about being a Christian. And I said, well, what makes your life better than my life? And they'd want to explain about going to parties and doing all these things. And I was pretty open to just going and hanging out with friends at respective parties. I didn't drink. And they were sort of floored by that. And I said, well, why is it that the way I live seems less to you? And then I would explain to them when I hung out with my youth group and we did things together, how crazy fun we had. And then all of a sudden, a couple friends were just like, what are you talking about? You didn't have any alcohol? I'm like, no. We had our youth group. My youth group, we probably broke the law. We were in Dunlap, Illinois, and we played car tag at night. Anybody play that? It's a terrible idea. At 16 years old, if I drove towards your car and I shined my lights on it, tag, you're it. And then Mark would then try to chase me. And I'd hit reverse, get out of that, and I'd turn around and go. So I should say, we were not smart Christians. We just made up games, and we had fun. But my point is that I don't think it was a lack of evidence in our lives. When we hung out, we did things, and people at Hardee's or see our group together, very conspicuous, showing it up in people's lives. letting them know, not you're a Christian because of what you know, but because of the joy you share. And then lastly, is it contagious? Remember, the joy of the Spirit, fruit of the Spirit, fruit bears fruitfulness. Jesus went and cursed the fig tree because it did not bear fruit. And you don't bear fruit just because you know God. You bear fruit because of the joy of God in your life. That is contagious. DC Talk introduced a song with the words, I can't remember who said it, but it is a quote they offer from a scholar of a long time ago. He said, what the unbelieving world finds simply unbelievable is the lack of joy in Christians today. That we aren't bearing fruit because we're not excited to celebrate and to share. Jesus cursed the fig tree because it didn't bear fruit. Now, before you leave this morning and you ask yourself these three things, is Jesus evident in my life as a continuous joy, a conspicuous joy, other people see it, and contagious joy, other people want what I have? If you don't have that, then I'm going to invite you to think about how you look for the joy in your life. My mom was looking for her glasses. Anybody ever have somebody that does this? Where are my glasses? Where are my glasses? Where are my glasses? Where are my glasses? She'd look around. She'd go through and all of a sudden, we're sitting at the dinner table waiting for, she's in the kitchen. She's just going 1,000 miles an hour. She's looking for her glasses. We pause. We say, Mom, guess where her glasses were? On her head. She had them up here. She goes, act like nothing happened. We just had 5 minutes robbed of us because of her panic attack about finding her glasses, and they were on her head. Are you looking in the right places? When you get bored, do you need an immediate dopamine hit, or do you need devotional time? When you get grumpy, do you need to just stay home more and more and more? Nothing wrong with being home for a few nights. Or do you need to get out of your comfort and go hang out with people? Be social. Engage the world. Are you looking for Jesus? Are you looking for joy in the right places? So I say again, rejoice in the Lord always. And again I say rejoice.